Welcome to the Bernadette Jackson Podcast, where we are redefining how the world views women with daddy issues by discussing topics, sharing stories, and gaining insight, all from the perspective of a fatherless daughter. I'm your host, Bernadette, the creator of Her Way Relationship Intensive, and I am here with our last episode of Story Time with my sister, with my friend, Jabrita Shelton. She is better known as your modern day Harriet Tubman. She is a wife, she is a mother, she is a philanthropist, and she is a CEO of Jabrita Shelton & Co., chief consultant of the Madness Method and curator of the Mind Your Madness experience. I am super duper excited to have her here as my final Storytime episode of season 2. Jabrita, where you at, girl?
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you so much, Bernadette, for that amazing intro. I am so excited to be here, to be on this podcast, ending your last session of Storytime. So thank you so much. And I'm just looking forward to all that God is going to reveal on this podcast.
Man, it is my pleasure to have you here. Every time that I do one of these episodes, I always like to start with asking my guests some icebreaker questions. So it's going to be the same with you. So here is my first question that I'm sure my audience wants to know. If you could pick up a certain skill instantly, what would it be and why?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question. If I could pick up a certain skill, what would it be and why? I will probably say mind reading.
Ooh, okay.
Mind reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would say that because most people have a habit of hiding their true thoughts. And so for me, I like to know what's coming from the heart versus what's coming from the head. So I would really like to know if I could do mind reading.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I didn't even think about that either, but you know what? That is real. Look, that's why I needed to have you on the podcast. Okay. So what experience have you had in the last 6 months that has been really impactful for you?
Wow. Where do I start? The last 6 months. Being as though we're getting ready to enter into June, since the beginning of this year, 2021, my life has changed tremendously. I mean, from meeting, yourself, meeting other women, being a part of Purpose to Platform program that really brought us full circle to our purpose and our calling, and just really understanding the path of obedience, just really understanding the path of obedience. So I have gone from what I would like to call from hiding myself, right? Being in the background, to God really calling me out front. And so being a thought leader, walking in purpose, confidently owning it. I have been featured on numerous podcasts. I have became a published author. I am now going to be graduating from Command the Stage, which is a speaking program. And so much has changed. I have seen, things in my family, the dichotomy of my family change. And so much, just so much. So, oh my God, I really, sometimes I think I have to sit and really think about, all of the things, because things have been happening simultaneously. And I'm just like, oh my God, my mind is blown with the things that I've experienced. So, yeah.
Wow, that is a lot. And you know what? Like, I've experienced some of that with you, so I know how impactful some of it was. But man, like, to have all of those experiences in a 6-month time frame, and then just to see your life like come full circle, oh boy. Like, I know that is definitely like, God winks here and there and everywhere. Like, this is where I want you to do, this is where I want you to go. I love it.
Yeah. It's been amazing. Like, it's, like I said, it's truly mind blown. It is surreal in so many, instances. And I wake up every day and I'm just like, wow. Like, I remember a time where I hated my life. Like, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I remember my life being that way. And so for my life to have turned around 360 to be what I'm experiencing now, to be on the other side of, healing and just living in the moment each day, not knowing what God is going to do, but being open to listen to the instructions and the pivots that he's telling me to make. So it has really been just, it's been mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So what would you call the autobiography of your life if it needed to be titled? What would that book be?
So, funny you asked that question, because I've been writing the story on and off for quite some time. And the title of the book is actually called My Secret Love Affair with Abuse.
Oh.
My Secret Love Affair with Abuse. That's the title of my book.
Oh, wow.
And that is actually that's my autobiography, and it tells tales. You know what I mean? Like, from the beginning of understanding my parents' madness to coming to in fullness with confronting myself through my madness to actually evolving from that place. So that's it. My Secret Love Affair with Abuse, coming soon.
Wow, I cannot wait till it comes. I will be the first in line to crack that book open. I can't believe that. Like, that title alone draws you in. Now you want to know, what is this secret love affair? What's going on? I need to get to the juice right now. So, I can't wait for that. I cannot wait for that. So then, okay, so your secret love affair with abuse. And I know clearly, things have had to absolutely start with you just being a child and your home life and everything. So with that, like, when would you say that you realized that you were a fatherless daughter? How did that come up for you?
So, a lot of times most people think that being a fatherless daughter only has to do with the father not being present, right, in their life or in the home. But I like to challenge that thought, because there are a lot of women who did have fathers in the home, but the fathers were not emotionally present. They were not, physically involved, right? And so my father was there, but a lot of times he was not present. He was physically there, but he was, preoccupied with other things, or usually at work, or, the only time we would really have real conversation or real dialogue was when he was drinking alcohol, so there was just a lot of things that, played into of course, my understanding of, relationships with men and different things like that as a result of, that. And so though my father was present, physically, emotion wasn't there. Verbally, he wasn't, and even to this day, I have to, I have to force conversations, like I have to ask, specific questions to even get answers, even when we're in the same room. And so that's kind of been my experience in terms of fatherlessness with my father.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really great point, because I think that a lot of people don't understand, and I do try to talk about it here, that fatherlessness is not just the absence of a father. Like, sometimes it is the emotional unavailability of that father, or just like him not being intentional with his relationship with you, and the kinds of things that it, just roots in your life as a result of that. So with that said, like, how did that type of relationship affect you emotionally in relationships?
Well, okay, so, the relationship in general was a little bit rocky, because my background, or the experience that I encountered with both my parents, where my father was physically and verbally and emotionally abusive, to my mom. And as a result of that, I was the witness, I was the eyewitness, but I also was the person that, kind of helped my mom up from those, situations, right?
Yeah.
And so though like a certain level of fear that I had for my father, it wasn't healthy fear, it was a negative fear, right? Because though he never physically abused me, I almost resented him for what I saw him do to my mom, because I
Yeah.
didn't understand why he felt my mother deserved that, right? And so the relationship between us, I always felt like my father loved me. I always felt he, was compassionate towards me. I never would question his love for me, but I always questioned how he viewed love, right?
Mm.
What was his perspective of love? Because if this is what you can do to the mother of your child, if this is what you can do to the person that you say you love, then as your daughter, and you have not thought about how the impact of that has now been, etched in my memory, right? Then how am I to look at myself as it relates to other men, right? What is my definition of a man supposed to look like when this has been the example that I have, been forced to receive?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't my choice, right? And so it really, really did paint a different type of picture in my mind about men and what I should accept, what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable, how hard I should go, because my mother went hard for our family. Even despite the abuse that she endured, that I saw my mom suffer, she went hard for our family. And she went hard for our family because of, the history of women in my family, right? So she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be something different. And as a result of that, she wanted to have the husband, she wanted to have the family, she wanted to have the children. So she went hard for us. And so I didn't understand what would drive a man to do something like this to a woman who he says he loves. And that for me as his child to have had to witness that, right? Why was I not good enough for you not to do this in front of me?
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So it was so many different things that I had to come to in terms of understanding as I got older, as I began to fill my holes with, positive things versus the negative things that I experienced. As I began to understand, right, the dichotomy of that, the psychology behind it, the manipulation, like as I began to understand all those things, I came to know and understand that my father was not well.
Yeah.
He was not well. And so because he was not well, when the saying goes, hurt people,
Mm-hmm.
it really is true,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, hurt people. And I don't know where his stemmed from, but I only could attribute what my mother's pain was because I experienced it. And so as a woman who now have entered into relationships, I didn't know how to choose men, right? I didn't know how to choose, I didn't know what the right person was for me, what I should look for. I didn't know how I should be treated. I didn't know how men should show up for me. I didn't know that. And also in addition to that, I didn't know my own self-worth and value.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. So because I didn't know my self-worth and my value, I allowed myself to be used and abused by people who also did not understand my worth and value.
Right.
So, it goes so many ways, sis. It
Yeah.
goes so many ways.
Yeah, like honestly, like I can really, really resonate with what you're saying because it is so easy for us to internalize what we are experiencing as somehow being our fault or as somehow being, an indictment against our character. And as a result of it, we always then just accept whatever is given to us because we think that we don't deserve better than what we've experienced, what we've seen, and all of that. And I see this so often in my clients, and it's why I go so hard with letting them know, like, look, you deserve amazing relationships, because it's like if you don't understand this, you will just continue to accept that things are familiar even though that's not really what you deserve. So I so understand that. So even with all of that now, with, just not knowing how to choose partners, and with accepting, what was familiar, and, having relationships with people who didn't understand your worth, even as you were trying to learn to understand it. When did you decide that, you know what, enough is enough? I'm tired of this. I no longer want to live like this. What would you say was your coming to Jesus moment in regards to relationships?
I would honestly have to say the last experience that I had, which is you taking me back, girl. The last experience that I had was a gentleman, and you know, God bless his soul, he's no longer with us. But I had a physical altercation with this gentleman, and I was living in an apartment complex, and at the time, I don't know what brought us to this point, but I remember him physically choking me under the tire of a car,
Mm.
and I blacked out. Um, and all I remember is the police pulled us apart. The state police pulled us apart, and my shirt was covered in blood.
Wow.
But it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine. And that moment, in fact, now that I'm thinking about the details of the story, I remember what brought us to that point. I had a baby. My daughter she was about 1 year old at the time. And him and I were dating. And she was a baby. She was crying. She wouldn't stop crying. I don't know what it was this particular day that, he was irritated by her crying. And he took his hand and muffed her.
Oh no,
And
he's crazy.
I was on the third floor of an apartment building, and in my apartment. And sis, I put his entire body through a wall. And we fought from the top of the stairs to the parking lot. And then, like I said, that was the situation that, as I'm thinking about the details, bringing it back, that's what happened. It brought us, to the out front of the apartment complex. The police was called. They pulled us apart. I ended up getting restraining orders at my apartment complex. I ended up getting restraining orders at my job. And there was, several people looking outside. I don't know who called the police. I have no idea. And the crazy thing is that prior to this particular fight, this was not the first time that he had did something, but the first time to her, but not to me. Right. And a lot of times as women, we're put in these situations, and it's like we don't have the strength to fight for ourselves. But that day, I found the strength to fight for my child.
That's it.
And so, after I got the restraining orders, both at my apartment complex and also at my job, I woke up the next morning and came outside, and my car was literally sitting on bricks. He had taken my tires off my car. He had taken my battery out of my car, and I was on my way to work. So for me, that was the breaking point. Understanding, I can't do this. I can't live my life like this. I grew up seeing this. This was my experience. I cannot allow my child to now have the same reality that I grew up with. So again, going back to, though I did not have the courage to fight for myself, I had the courage to fight for that experience for my child. And so that's what brought me to it, full circle, one and done. That's it. That's all. We're not doing it again.
Yeah. That's real. That's real, because I'm telling you, like, when you become a mom, it's a completely different reality that you have. And the strength that you swore you didn't have, you find. So I completely get that, because I talk to my child all the time, like, listen, baby girl, all you got to do is say the word, okay? Like, mama's coming. Don't you worry.
Period.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And the funny thing about the entire story is that I remember having a conversation with my dad prior to this particular incident. And he said to me, if he's hitting you, don't tell me.
Wow.
And so in that moment, I had nobody to go to.
Yeah.
I had no one to protect me.
Yeah.
I had no one to defend me,
Mm-hmm.
any of those things, right? And so, yeah, that was one of the experiences where I learned really fast that if you're gonna need protection, you better learn how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
never had a problem with fighting, when I was younger, but this one was different.
Mm-hmm.
This one was different. So I learned really fast.
Yeah.
I learned really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wow. Man. So after the fight, after coming outside to no wheels on your car, to no battery in your car, what was the first thing that you did after all of that? After you just decided, you know what, like enough is enough. What did you do?
I ended up calling a taxi. Still had to go to work,
Hmm.
right? Still had to go to work. I called a taxi. I took my baby to daycare like I normally would do.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work and I talked to my supervisor because of course I had to call and let them know I was late. So I was talking to her and she was very, very, very kind, very understanding. And she let me know that she had my back. She was like, hey, if you see me around here, let me know, we're calling the police. Like, that's what it
Yeah.
was. And
Yeah.
so I appreciated that. And so, I got through my shift. The whole time I'm working, I'm thinking, okay, God, what am I going to do? At this time, I really didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have a lot of money. I was a single mom, even though my baby was only one. I was just trying
Right.
to figure a lot out. I was very young. I was like 22, 23, almost 24, I believe I was. And I was just trying to figure life out. You know what I mean? I was going through a lot. I had been through quite a bit. And I just was really trying to figure it out. And so um it was a gentleman at my job, which is so funny. I'm over here laughing and smiling at the same time because the gentleman that it was a few people that I had been talking to at work. This gentleman in particular, he wouldn't really say much to me. He would just always smile, but I was very apprehensive about, talking to people, being involved with anybody, because that experience really, really shook me up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, this particular day, I guess he saw me crying at work. We were all on our shift and he saw me crying and he came by. He was like, you okay? And just out of the blue, I just kind of just opened up to him. And long story short, he ended up buying me tires.
Mm.
Um, and buying me a battery. And he was like, I'm gonna take you home. And I was like, yeah, you can't stay, because I don't know if he's gonna try to come back again. Like, I was
Right.
scared to put the tires on the car,
Right.
even though I had a restraining order, like all of the things, right? To say the least, the gentleman that stepped in is my husband today.
Baby, do you see how the
So
Lord works?
you and so, it was one of the situations where I know that I believe God sent an angel for
Yeah.
me, because he
Yeah.
knew that what I had been through, I did not deserve.
Yeah.
And though I was very apprehensive, though I was very fearful, um, he was like, I'm just gonna make sure you're good. I'm gonna make sure you're straight. And and that literally from that moment on, we have been inseparable. So that's kind of like how that whole story that story ends.
Wow. As you were talking, the thing that I was thinking about was that look how your father made it clear that he could not be a covering for you, but then God sent a covering in your future husband almost the next day. Like, you know what? My daughter is not going to be out here
Yeah.
exposed. I'm about to send the person that I want to lead her and to cover her so that she understands what it is like to be loved the way I want her to be loved. Look at that.
Listen, Linda,
Man.
listen.
Okay.
And the funny thing though is that because I had been through so much, I did not know how to receive him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to, accept him,
Yeah.
because he did not bring the drama. He did not bring all of the things that I was accustomed to. He didn't bring those things to my life. He was literally sent to help and to assist and
Mm-hmm.
to heal. And I did not, for probably the first year, I kept backing away because I was like, this is unreal.
Yeah.
I know something is going to happen, so it was like all of those things that, because I had experienced it as a child, because I experienced it personally,
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, this can't be true. There's
Mm-hmm.
nobody in this world that's going to be this. And you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it painted this picture, but he was so steadfast about being with me and about showing me that he was there for Jabrita,
Mm.
not what I could offer, not what I had, not what I didn't have, but for me. And so I always say, even to this day, God chose him for me because I didn't have sense enough to choose him for myself.
Listen. I completely get that. Like, it's the perpetual just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, I'm not going to give you my heart. I'm not finna be all in because I know that this can't possibly last. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna just hold back here in the wings and just wait. Look, I know it. Trust me. It's classic.
Yes.
I definitely get it. I definitely get it. So now, having lived life, having been through these experiences, having experienced the type of covering that God wants you to have, what would you tell your younger self now that you've been through some healing?
Ooh, my God, where do I start? I would honestly tell her, learn your worth,
Mm,
understand your value, respect yourself,
mm-hmm.
and know that the path that God has designed and ordained for you, he will send you your equal.
Mm-hmm.
He will send you someone that will cover you because he makes up the difference. God is a difference maker. So he makes up the difference in our life through people and through experiences. But we also have to be open to what that is.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Because father loss is trauma that affects us relationally, there are a lot of areas of our healing that will actually happen in relationships. So,
Yeah.
how is your marriage helping you, or how has it helped you in your healing journey?
My marriage, we went through quite a bit, to be completely honest and transparent, because that's the only way I know to be, right? Um, we went through quite a bit in the beginning of our relationship. The first 5 years was, the first 2, 3 years were beautiful. Um, but of course, in the beginning of every relationship, you're hiding. You're not really fully being, 100% authentic, especially when you have had trauma, because you're afraid that if you let it all hang out, or if they see the ugly, they're going to run. You don't want them to see that side of you, because you don't know how you're going to be judged, if you're going to be rejected, if they're still going to love you the same way that they did prior to knowing these particular things about you. And so for me, our marriage has evolved over time. We've been together 18 years. We've been married 15 years this year.
Wow.
And we have had our ups and our downs. But what I tell people is that good marriages are not born. Good marriages are not born, they are birthed.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have a good marriage, you have to go through, right? You have to go through the hardest of things, the lowest of things, the deepest of things together, and still remain friends. And so
Right.
through it all, we have remained friends. I did not always like him. He did not always like me, but we
Mm-hmm.
always loved each other. And so
Yeah.
that has been the most important thing. Because even when we were not likable, we were still lovable. And
Mm-hmm.
so the culture of our relationship has changed over seasons. through experiences, but the commitment. And I want to say this because it wasn't my commitment to him. It was his commitment to us. Because as a wounded woman, as a woman who has endured, suffered, experienced, and also witnessed these types of traumas, right? I didn't have the capacity, I didn't have the ability to understand what it meant to be fully committed, enthralled in somebody else's madness outside of my own.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. So I learned unconditional love from my husband.
Wow.
I learned unconditional love through my husband, through the Lord confirming, affirming, and reaffirming to me that his love me was the closest I was going to experience on this side of heaven, you know, from a male's perspective. And so it was through that experience, through understanding that, with having the relationship that I have with God, it was through that I understood that I was so busy as a broken woman trying to prove my love that I had not taken the time to receive the love that was poured out for me. And so my husband, and his love and his unconditional love and his ability to stand firm in what he believed is what taught me stability. It taught me unconditional love. And it taught me a lot about me as a woman, as a wife, as a mother. It taught me so much about me. And so his love has given me the ability to be, to experience Jabrita, like all sides of me, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the complicated, but most importantly, he always reminds me of who I am, even when I couldn't see it myself. So his love has given me a space to really grow forward, and be okay with the space that I needed along the journey to give to myself. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been extremely interesting. And watching him with his girls, he had to learn how to be a father. He had to learn, how to nurture, those spaces. But a lot of things we talked about in the beginning, that I was able to tell him was basically out of my own experience. Be available, be available, not just present, be available. Talk to your daughters, date your daughters, show them how, they are supposed to be treated with not only how you treat me, but when you bring me flowers, bring them flowers. So it was teachable moments that we shared together, that has grown and cultivated, our relationship and our marriage over time.
Yeah. So a couple of things you said stood out to me. So you said that, when you first was married, that you considered yourself a wounded woman. And you also said that, you were constantly trying to prove your love. And that's actually one of the fatherless daughter trigger points that I speak to my clients about. So what would you say is the fear-based responses that you may have had in your relationship with your husband early on before you kind of learned how to love him unconditionally? What would you say some of those responses to your fears and your triggers were?
Oh, honey, toxic. Let me just start by saying toxic. Okay. Just self-sabotaging, brainstorming issues that hadn't even, became, true or became real or relevant.
Yeah.
Overthinking, wanting to, oh, well, before he hurts me, let me just cut it off. The abandoning, the abandonment that I didn't want, I was trying to do with him.
Right.
It was just, oh my God, it was just so many things, right? Yeah. So many things. Let's see, girl, I don't even know where to start or where to stop, because it was just that much, right? I really, I thought I understood relationships because I had been in relationships, but I really hadn't been in relationships, if I'm being completely honest. I had been in situationships, but they were not relationships. Because
Right.
when you're in a relationship, that person seeks to know you. They desire to
Yes.
want to know things about
Yes.
you that you still have yet to discover about yourself. But
That
when you
part.
are in situationships, right, which were the things that I was in before, it's more so about what can I get from you, what you got to give me, what I'm, you know what I mean? Like that's what
Yeah.
it was. And so when I realized that my husband is also, I didn't mention, he's also 3 years younger than me.
Mm.
So I didn't understand how this young man, right, could hold so much weight,
Right.
could be so solid. I never had that experience of a man.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to receive that. So,
Yeah.
we had to learn how to communicate. We had to learn how to not be enemies. We had to learn and relearn how to be friends. It was just so many things. But yeah, the toxic never ran out. It didn't run out until I began to seek healing,
Yeah.
until I understood that these are things that I don't want to pass down to my daughters. These are wounds that if I don't heal them now, they're going to destroy the gift that God has given me with the covering that God has given me through my husband. I
Yeah.
had to learn how to submit. I had to learn how to surrender. I had to learn that it wasn't just about my way and what I wanted and what I brought to the table. He came in with this whole thought process around money, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a lot of things. Though I had always shown up in different spaces to be teachable, there was a lot of things there that
Yeah.
needed to be unlearned, taught, affirmed,
Mm-hmm.
um and what can I say? So when most people see us now, I'm like, baby, what you looking at? We work for this.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
work for this. So yeah.
Man. So with the healing journey that you've been on and everything, has that changed your relationship with your dad now? What is it like?
So my father and I, we've had, conversations. I love my father. I've never stopped loving my father, regardless to his absence, him being, in the room but not present. Like, regardless of those things, I still love my father. I was a caretaker of my father for several years, through, his sickness and multiple medical bouts with his medical,
Mm-hmm.
experiences and different things like that. But I would honestly say, with the ability to confront my father for the things that I experienced with him, when it came full ahead, where I confronted him as a woman to a man and not as a daughter to a father. When
Right.
I was able to make the separation and to see him for who he was versus what I expected him to be,
Yeah.
it changed tremendously. And so having that ability, really, it allowed my relationship with my husband to heal past the wounds that I experienced of trusting,
Yeah.
right? Of respect. It allowed me to honor and respect my husband in a way that I had not been respecting and honoring him. It allowed me to understand that he is not my father,
Mm.
um, and that he's not going to abandon me, and that he's not
Mm.
going to leave me, and that I am worthy of being loved. It allowed me to see those things. And so, like, even now, I have a good relationship with my father, even now, through all of that. Why? Because I healed forward. I was
Yes.
intentional about my growth. I was intentional about my healing. I was intentional about, like the word of God says, what good is it for you to love those who are lovable? The
Mm.
reward comes with loving those who doesn't deserve the love the most, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I began to understand that, my father is still God's child,
Mm.
it gave me the ability to love him even in his faults and even in his flaws. It gave me the ability to understand that my father is a flawed man. He is a man who, has suffered his own trauma. He is a man who has suffered his own dealings. And now he has to live with those things. But I don't have to live as a prisoner of my experience. I can live apart from the experience, knowing that that was my experience, but the experience is not who I am. And so it's taught me so much. Like I said, the having the ability to talk to my father, to confront my father, and not expect an apology, not expect him to say that I understand how you feel, not expect him to say, I'm really sorry that happened, or I'm really sorry that I did that. I did not expect that from him. I was truly able to tell him how I felt, how it affected me, how it impacted me, and leave the rest to God, because that was the requirement that I received. Tell him, release it, let it go. And so with my husband having my back, just affirming me along the way when we would have our pillow conversations, at night, and talk about particular things. And I say, this is really bothering me. And he would affirm, you should talk about that. You should X, Y, and Z. But knowing that I had, that support, really, really made the difference. It made the difference.
Yeah, I imagine that it did, because I mean, honestly, like, you really just said a word there, because it really is all of the difference in the world when you start to look at your parents as people who have had their own experiences, who have experienced their own traumas, and who a lot of times have done the best that they possibly could with the experience that they had, and not looking at them as like, our parents who was supposed to do XYZ. And granted, yes, in an ideal world, that's exactly how things are supposed to be. But when you grow up and when you have your own experiences and when you have your own children, it just put things into perspective, and you're able to see, what, like, I really have to let this go. Like, I can't continue to allow this to consume me. So I love that you were able to get that, and that it really just changed the relationship with your husband in such a major way, because you are finally able to let all of that go and just, understand that, what, like, this happened to me, but it was not because of me.
Correct.
And that's the other thing that I'm telling you, like, I drill this into my clients, like, it happened to you, yes, but it was not because of you. So I am so glad that, God really revealed that to you, and just like putting it on your heart to just let him know how you felt, but then releasing it, not expecting any particular response from him, but just letting him know. Like, I love that. So with all of that, just with, everything that you've been through, with the deliverance, with the healing, with this amazing relationship, how would you say that your lived experience influences what you do now in terms of your line of work, how you parent, or in any other way that you want to share with us?
Oh, it absolutely influences it infuses and influences every area of my life. And that comes without, speaking or whatever. Like, it's understanding where the madness of my parents ended, and that experience, how, the residue of that kind of trickled over. Because what happens is that those seeds are planted, even if they're not our own. They're planted, and life, expectations and experiences and people and interactions water the seeds that are already there.
That's good.
Right. And as a result of that, we grow up and we have these behaviors, these mindsets, these limiting beliefs. We have all of the things that we're wrestling with, because we're trying to figure out who we really are, apart from what we were told, apart from our experience, apart from, the visuals that we've had to encounter over time. And so, it has played a significant role in how I parent, how I take care of my home, how I show up as a woman, with my business, with my calling to help heal other women, to help
Mm-hmm.
heal and deliver other families, to give people some real, relative, transparent insight, to
Mm-hmm.
say that you can go through all of this and choose not to do, anything better, but you can also choose through this and see your life evolve from that situation or that experience or that circumstance. And so for me, like I said, when our kids were very young, we have conversations about, why it's important for you to be present, why it's important for you to spend time with the children. And though I realized in the beginning of our marriage, a lot of things I was saying were right, but I was saying them out of fear based on my own experience, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But what I was saying was right, but the energy behind it was from fear. So when I
Mm-hmm.
learned the difference between fear-based love and unconditional love, it shifted, it changed. So it brought to a state of consciousness to say, what I teach now is from a place of empathy, but also from a place of experience, so that you don't have to go through the things that I've gone through. Why? Because I've already paid the price. And so, for me, having, the different relative experiences, from understanding my mom's story, um, getting to know my father's story, understanding how I fit in it all, coming into a relationship with my husband, becoming a wife, becoming a mother, now being a business owner, now being a transformation coach, now being a speaker, now being a
You
published
better,
author. Like,
girl, you better
all
go
of those
ahead.
things, all of those things now makes sense with what
Yeah.
I went through. It now connects. It's like nothing that God did was unintentional. Nothing that
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through has been wasted. No
Right.
experience that I have encountered is irrelevant to what I'm doing now. So it
Mm-hmm.
shows up in everything, sis. Every single thing.
Yeah, like that's amazing because all it does is remind me that, what it says in the Bible, that nothing that we do will be wasted and that all things will work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called to his purpose.
Listen.
And baby, like you are
Yes.
called, okay? I love it.
And the one thing that I love so much is that even in all of what I saw and all that I experienced and all that I encountered, when I look at my mom to this day, I never saw her as a weak woman. I never saw her as a broken woman. I always admired her strength. And so when most people see me and say, "You are so strong," I attribute it to what I saw as a woman. You understand? As a woman, the model of woman that I saw before me, right?
Yeah.
And even my dad, I love my dad, regardless of what his shortcomings were, I still love my father. But as a woman, my mother taught me how to go through hardness
Mm,
with grace.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that made the difference for me. So for some women who experience fatherlessness, they may not have that experience. But for me, what made the difference for me was having that model, having that experience as a woman, to see that you can go through this and still rise. You can go through this and still get up. And that has made all the difference in my life.
Yeah, no, that is really something because a lot of times it's really, really hard to go through things like very traumatic things and still have that feminine softness, because it's like just having to deal with trauma already puts you in a space where you feel like you need to always be protecting yourself. And that is more masculine than it is feminine. So when you are in that kind of masculine
Absolutely.
energy all the time, Like, it's so hard to just show up in your feminine, for you to be soft and everything, because it's like you're just sitting up there waiting, almost like clenching your fist, just like,
Yeah.
waiting for the next blow. So for you to have seen your mom deal with everything that she dealt with and still be soft, still have that grace, still have that femininity, like that really says something about her strength, honestly. Like
I listen,
girl.
it is model, it is ideal, and like I said, for me, because I had that experience of her, through it all, seeing her triumph through that, that trauma. And because, back in those days, they didn't have the resources that we have now,
Yeah.
right? They didn't have they didn't have all of the access to the things that we have access to now. And so it made a difference to still be able to see her grow through what she's grown through, and her faith still be so solid and so strong even through it all. And so, like, for me, I truly attribute, and I say to myself, my youngest daughter now says the same thing about me. Mom, I've seen you go through, all of the things. And I'm so proud of you for, the fight, the grit, like the resilience, and, my dad, like, he tells me, I'm proud of you. He tells me that, I'm proud of you. And I've always knew he was proud of me regardless. I've always known that. But it makes a difference. It makes a difference when you know that you have done the work, not just for yourself, but for those who have yet to heal and
Mhm.
those who are coming behind you. And so it just makes a difference. Makes a difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. I completely agree. So we're almost done, and I want to wrap things up with Bernadette's quick five. So that's where we answer 5 questions, and you have about 5 seconds to tell me what your answer is, and just tell me what the first thing is that comes to mind. No pressure. All right.
Whoa. All right, let's go.
All right. Okay. What's one thing you think people get wrong about fatherless daughters?
Ooh, the one thing I think people get wrong about fatherless daughters is that the father is out of the home in order for them to experience fatherlessness.
Okay. Yep. Number two. What is one thing you believe that you're better at because you're a fatherless daughter?
I believe I am better at showing men how to tap into the compassionate side of understanding how they need to show up for their daughter,
Oh,
because I understand what it's like to have a father in the home but not be present.
oh, I love that. I love that. I'm telling you right now, that's a business all onto itself. Like, really. Okay. What is one book you've read that really improved your relationships with others?
So many. Uh, the one I would probably speak of is hmm, knowing God as Father.
Mm, yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number four. Okay. So what would you like to be known or remembered for?
I would like to be known and remembered for bringing my sisters, bringing women, particularly Black women, Black marriages, Black children, um, from the floor of their experience to the mountaintop, through understanding that healing, no, through understanding that pain is necessary for true transformation. and that the pain that we experience is only there to prove that we are human, but yet there's still so much love.
Wow. Wow. And one last question. This is a fill in the blank. My name is blank, and my father loss does not define me because.
My name is Jabrita Shelton, and my father loss does not define me because I am the apple of my true father's eye.
Yes, girl. I love it. Sis, it was a pleasure talking to you. I so enjoyed this conversation. Where can people find you?
I absolutely love and enjoyed this conversation as well. Since listen, you took me by surprise. But there was so much said, and people can find me on Facebook and Instagram at both handles, Jabrita Shelton Co. and Mind Your Madness Experience. You can also join the private Facebook community, Mind Your Madness, and you can also visit the website at www.mindyourmadnessexperience.com. Look for, coaching, look for courses, and I look forward to connecting soon. Thank
That
you.
is awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast today. And ladies and gentlemen, that was my interview with Jabrita Shelton, my sister, my friend, and y'all. I know that you saw how amazing she is, and I cannot wait for you to see some of the things that we are going to be talking about in the future. And I just want everyone to know that this is going to be our final episode of season 2. We will be back with season 3 in the beginning of July. So I am going to be taking the month of June off to have my interviews, to get all of my ducks in a row, and to come back for season 3 better than ever with a new intro, with some new things. I am excited. So this is me signing off. As always, I love you guys. I will absolutely see you in season 3. And please remember that you deserve amazing relationships. Bye.